All right, on this episode of the LPDS, we have a little hodgepodge of topics today. Talk a little bit about my trip to Oklahoma City. Talk a little bit about my great aunt's 100th birthday party. Talk a little bit about a whole slew of other stuff, except really not really a whole slew of anything else. But we also have a good cage fact, a hopeful cage fact, couple of bombastic current events. And that's all coming up right now. All right, Jabronis, we're back. Welcome back to Libretti Podcast Diary Show. I'm your host, Libretti. Hope everybody had a good week. Mine was rather eventful. A lot of busyness going on. Hopefully you guys had a good week, though. A lot of positives. Got through some obstacles that you otherwise wouldn't have. Learned some lessons. Met some new people. What have you? That's what I tried to do. Went on a work trip, got back, got old Randy. If you're looking at Randy right now, he is dead to the world. He was in boarding for 3-4 days, 3 nights, 3 days, something like that. And if anybody has ever met Randy, he wants to aggressively be best pals with everything and everybody. To the point where I believe firmly that he would likely kill a squirrel or a small rodent just to stop it from running away from him so he can be his pal. And then probably not realizing that he killed it in the process. So sort of like a Of Mice and Men situation with Lenny Smalls. That was a good book, by the way. Read that freshman year of high school. Mr. Berman's English class. Reread Of Mice and Men. And I did a couple of movie renditions on it. One of them had Gary Sinise was playing George, and I think John Malkovich was playing Lenny in that movie. I don't know if it was for theaters or made for TV, but that was a good book, and it inspired the cartoon characters, Lenny and George, and the big dopey Lenny was, which way did he go, George? Which way did he go? That's where it came from, the Book of Mice and Men. And if you think you weren't going to get any sort of lesson in this episode, you're wrong. You got it within the first 5 minutes. There's a little history lesson and a literature lesson all in one, right off the bat. Growing, improving, and getting better in life. And it's all thanks to the LPDS. So you're welcome for that. This audio sounded a little weird. I hope it's not too weird in the real lives. So you got to let me know. I guess I'll find out in post if it's all jacked up and I have to go on an apology tour in the comments about it. But hopefully you guys can hear what I'm talking about. But anyway, what the hell else? What was I talking about? Oh, Randy. So he gets into the boarding and he wants to be best pals with all the dogs in there, and he does not stop until either they pull him, to his bed area, to his private little resting area, or he dies. Like, he will not stop trying to befriend other dogs. You rarely ever see him laying down when there's a group of dogs there. If it's just one or two other dogs in like somebody's home, he's good, he's normal. But when there's new dogs coming in and out all day, every day, that's it. It's constant new friends for him. And when he goes there, he gets tuckered out quick, and he will go on a 3-day coma session where he is dead to the world. And I'm not mad about it. So if I had the money, I'd take him to daycare on a regular basis so we could socialize with other animals and stuff and get some good exercise in. But that stuff's expensive, man. And I know they have to pay for the facilities and the power and the employees and stuff, but at the end of the day, the physical act of watching a couple of dogs, they put them in a pen. They put them in a big cement area with fans and water bowls everywhere. And they sit there and watch them, make sure they don't fight. That sounds awesome. Imagine I get paid to just watch dogs. Watch dogs do dog stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay well because there's not a lot that goes into it. So I guess that's that. Anyway, that was my week. Work trip. And then this birthday party that I went to that I'll get into in the Junction. But we got some current events. Well, one current event really I want to talk about. And I think you know what it is. And at this point, do we really have to put the tinfoil hats on? Because the alien UFO subject has come up so often in Congress and the Pentagon and the government and with what are supposed to be reputable people, even though I don't think they are in the government anymore. That is the one place in the history of the alien UFO discussion that continually denied any and all stories and sightings and abductions that people were talking about in this country all over the world. The government was always the one shutting it down and saying it's not true, it's ridiculous. Pay no attention to these psychopath idiot weirdos. But once they start talking about it and verifying the validity of some of these stories and these accounts, you have to start wondering. Now, here's where the tinfoil hat really comes on. Just for a second here, just a quick, how you doing with the tinfoil hat? There's got to be a reason why they're publicizing these hearings that were going on. There was a couple whistleblowers that were part of the Pentagon's unidentified aerial phenomenon task force, the UAP task force that they set up to investigate what these sightings were and stuff like that. A couple of the whistleblowers came out and they were reputable intelligence community officials, members of the intelligence community, came out and talked about a whole bunch of stuff that they know to be true and that they heard from other folks in that task force to be true. There's really no other reason in my stupid tinfoil hatty brain why they decided to actually publicize these hearings and let this go on if they weren't covering up a bigger story. And I don't necessarily know what it is just yet. I'm sure there was some big legislation that was signed where a bunch of the politicians are going to go do insider trading with that contract company they just made a deal with. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, because anytime they ever have any sort of bipartisan agreement on something, it's almost always when it's going to line their pockets. You just follow the money. It's pretty easy. That sounds crazy. I know people are like, that's ridiculous. That's not what happens. It's exactly what happens. It's actually been proven time and time again. I don't want it to happen. It's not my opinion. I don't think that I don't wish that would happen, so I have something to talk about all the time. That's what's happening. You just follow the money. Where is it? Whose pocket is it going in? And that's what's going on. So that could have been what happened during the alien stuff. I know the Hunter Biden plea deal is now kaput. Now he's pleading not guilty. They took his deal off the table, so now he's in potentially some serious shit for his crimes. What's crazy to me is that his crimes are directly connected to his dad and his family getting millions of dollars in kickbacks from foreign governments. And they have documents on a bunch of family members that received these monies, including the big guy, Joey B. So you have to believe if that's serious, other people are going to start getting prosecuted and charged with stuff. So we'll see what happens. If you want to, get conspiracy theory with that, people will probably be like, well, no, not with the Democratic side. They won't do anything about him because there's a Democrat. But if it was Trump, then he would definitely get prosecuted. Well, look, I say this once, I say it 1,000 times. Right now, the majority of all of them, the vast majority of all of them, it doesn't matter if they have an R or a D after their name or an I or a G or a P. The majority of them are all corrupt criminals, liars, cheats, whatever. Okay? What's really sad is besides the theory out there that the Justice Department is corrupt and compromised. In reality, even if that was true, despite that being true, if it is, we don't have enough manpower to investigate and prosecute all the corruption and criminal activity going on inside our Congress and Senate and our White House administration. We just don't. That's how bad it is. And you can call me crazy. You can call me the nut job who can't get over it and doesn't know what he's talking about. Fine. That's fine. But that's what's going on right now with the politicians. And when that's not going on, you have these 1,000-year-old Muppets like Mitch McConnell literally freezing at a podium, having some sort of medical episode. I don't know if it was a seizure or some sort of mini stroke. I haven't seen any updates since it happened. But the guy's up there talking about God knows what. He surely didn't know what it was talking about. And then he just, mid-sentence, just stops and he's in a death stare. Eyes glazed over. He looks like a wax statue of himself. And he had to be escorted out. He had to be told exactly where he was and then escorted out, hopefully to get medical attention. And what's going on in Congress and the Senate at the Capitol of this nation is eerily and scarily similar to what I witnessed at the nursing home at my great aunt's 100th birthday, which was a lot of old people doing things that you would observe and you would be like, yes, that's exactly something an old person would be doing right at this age and their health. And the next thing you would immediately say was, thank God they're not in charge of anything. Except in Washington, D.C., they're in charge of everything. Okay? And if we can come together on one thing, and I've said this before on different things, I'm sure, but if we can come together on one thing, is I think we can all agree that these people are too old and not fit to lead our country in any capacity, and we need to do something about it. Anyway, more information came out about aliens. And these reputable sources, in my mind, I consider these to be reputable sources, these whistleblowers, and I'll tell you why. A, they identified themselves. They didn't go running out of the country, or they don't look like complete psychopath nut jobs. And I know looks can be deceiving, obviously. Look at me. And they're currently government workers. They went through the whistleblower process appropriately, the way you're supposed to do it, not like the way other people have done it in the past, Ed Snowden, where they're calling that guy a hero, even though he just went right to the press and didn't actually follow procedures anyway. I'm not going to get on that soapbox. But these guys went through the whistleblower process. How you doing? The appropriate way you're supposed to go through it. And as promised, which is crazy to me because usually this doesn't happen in the government. They put something out and, they promise you this policy is in place. Don't worry about it. You follow this process, you're going to be good to go. And then you're usually not good to go. It's a huge reason why military members, active duty military members, don't seek out any sort of mental health aid or assistance or go talk to a medical professional of any kind, mental health wise or physical health wise, because the second you go in there, they start investigating you to kick you out of the military because you're not medically fit to fight. And they say it's because they care about your health and wellness and career and this and that. It's not. And you can call me jaded because it happened to me. But that's just the way it is. And it's happened to many other people I know and I don't know. And that's the stigma that I have, is because a process was in place and was not followed through by the people who made the process. So the fact that this actually worked is kind of surprising, but they got their day in court. These whistleblowers followed the process and they got their day in court, which makes me think they're, more reputable than not and have a little bit more credibility to them. Also, they're current intelligence community members. And I know what it takes to be part of the intelligence community. And I also know there's a lot of boobs and a lot of nepotism going on in there, a lot of good old boy stuff going on in a lot of those 3-letter agencies in our government, where it's who you know, not how good you are or anything. I get that happens a lot, but there's also a lot of good people in there too. And I think these guys are good people. Just the way that they're talking, the way they're presenting themselves, how calm and official they are in their communication. They're not sounding like Randy Quaid in Men in Black, where they have to escort him out and he's up in arms and they probed me and they got me, they'll get you too, and nothing like that. They're just, this is what I observed. This is the evidence I physically saw. And this is the testimony I received from other vetted, corroborated, credible sources within the program. A program that the government set up. It's not like these guys went rogue on their own, doing their own alien hunting on the side. This was a government-created task force to go investigate this stuff going on. And some of the stuff is a little crazy. And I'm not going to make any proclamation about the reality of aliens, extraterrestrials. I should be more clear on that, extraterrestrials. But they made statements several times in their testimony that when the government recovered crashed UFOs, crashed extraterrestrial-style vehicles, not of this earth, there were biologics inside those vehicles. Now, I'm not a smart man, but if you just think about the etymology of the word biologics, you can reasonably deduce that they were talking about life forms in these craft, in these vehicles that they recovered. Non-human biologics, and that's what they said in their testimony. Now, 2 things came out of this so far. Maybe 3 things. We'll go 3 things. 1, they're essentially saying extraterrestrials are real and we knew about them. The government knew about it. And that right there proves a lot of otherwise crazy, kooky stories that have been told over the past several decades, since the late 40s, early 50s, essentially. And maybe even before that, probably. Second thing that came out of this was that what else is going on under our noses that make the government comfortable with this stuff coming out? And why haven't enough people been up in arms about this recent revelation or discovery or whatever you want to call it? The third thing that came out of this was that we're getting some incredible jokes and memes in social media world. And if you don't know what a meme is, it's a picture with a funny caption that makes you laugh. Or something like that. But we're getting a lot of good memes, a lot of good jokes out of this whole thing. But as you know, I'm obsessed with the UFO stuff. I love a good UFO story or a sighting or an alien probing story, whatever it is. I am all aboard. I want aliens to be, I want extraterrestrials to be real, which, again, I understand gives me a lot of bias when I hear people talk about this stuff because I want to believe it's so bad. I start to probably subconsciously, objectively try to make it seem plausible when some of this stuff it really is cockamamie. But as more and more reputable people come out, credible sources come out with stories, you start to wonder. And I'm all in on it. I have my crazy cockamamie theories. I have my more toned down realistic theories. The cockamamie malarkey is just for me. That's just fun stuff for me to think about, like what's been going on behind our backs for decades now. I love thinking about that stuff. Cool, whatever. Then there's the more realistic where I try to be objective based on like what we know and some of the testimonies and who's the credible source giving this testimony and not. And I try to keep that realistic. And then I try to go to the other side, the skeptical side, where I try to cross-examine all these stories and testimonies and evidence to try to debunk them. And what I do is if I can't debunk it with my own educational background and intelligence, I throw it in the objective theory bucket in the middle here. And then stuff that sounds so crazy, but I don't know enough to debunk it or not, I throw that in my malarkey theory side because it sounds more fun and crazy. And that's pretty much how I go about my day in my head. Is I do my work, I work on my business, I prepare for the podcast, and then I think about what the aliens in our government are planning for us. So, total package right here, folks. Anyway, let's just get right into it. All right. I don't know how much I've been blabbering on about this already, but that's all I got about the aliens for now. Stay tuned. There's got to be more, hopefully. I should put out like a prediction of what I think is going to happen. I'll do that later. I'm not prepared. I had to put my notes, my red yarn notes. I had to organize that to make that a little bit more understandable for normal people out there. And I'll put out my prediction very soon here of what I believe to be the case. I'll even put out my crazy theory of what I've heard and what I sort of would be funny to be true. I don't necessarily want it to be true, but it would be funny. And again, sometimes you got to get creative with this stuff. You got nothing else to do. So I'll put that out there, and then we'll see if this ever happens, if this ever comes to fruition. Because if it does, look, if my prediction on the alien situation, extraterrestrials and all that actually comes to fruition, there's no reason why you or anybody you know should not immediately go sign up for a membership to Spearhead Leadership, because it just proves that the critical analysis, the thought process, the learning that goes on here, what we talk about, what we discuss that happens here on the LPDS is absolute gold. And if you want more of that, you're going to want to sign up and become a member of the Spearhead Leadership Community or get some consulting for your businesses. Because if I can take the little information we have out there now versus my general critical thinking abilities, my knowledge, everything else, put it all together and come up with a prediction that actually come out to be true, I'm Nostradamus. And why wouldn't you want to give me money to give you more education and training? It would be crazy for you not to. It would be crazy for you not to. And just to be able to say, yeah, I get leadership consulting and mentorship from the guy who predicted aliens. You want to talk about points at the bar. You think you won't get chicks telling them that? Forget about it. You'll be swimming in it. You will be swimming in it. You'll suffocate in a pile of women like my pal Bonji does on the weekends. So anyway, without further ado, we'll get right into it and we'll step into the cage.
Okay, let's run.
All right. Today's Into the Cage segment is proudly sponsored by Feels on Wheels. Are you ever in the mood for a cuddle or a casual feelage session with somebody, but you're too much of a loser to have a significant other and you're too cheap to pay the high premiums of a full-on escort? Then order from Feels on Wheels today and get your feelage delivered to your doorstep. Feels on Wheels has a bevy of babes, belugas, and bubbas ready to cater to your platonic yet physical needs. Feel like spooning? You want a nice long hug? Or even just want the feeling of someone touching your leg again who's not trying to pick your pocket? Visit Feels on Wheels today at www.gropetogo.com and use a promo code SADSNUGGLE for 29% off. I feel like that could be really worked out to be a funny sketch for a professional, like a Shane Gillis or even the guys at Barstool who do that sketch show. What's it called? I forgot what it's called, but it's with John Feidelberg and Little Sasquatch, where they do a pretty funny sketch show. And it's all just different sketches. They don't do the whole like talk in the middle of it, but it's a good show where they make up stories and stuff. I think that would be a good somebody who's better at this should take that idea and run with it and do something funny with it. Not me, but a guy I know. Anyway, the Cage fact. I just read an article. It's really more of a intelligence gathering, a rumor, if you will. But I read an article. They were doing an interview with the director of Renfield based on the latest success of that movie. And they were talking a lot about the ins and outs of the movie and how they used the historical data, I guess you can call it, of vampires based on all the previous novels and movies and stuff that and TV shows on vampires and stuff like that. And they baked that into the movie, into Renfield, even though it was like a comedy action kind of movie. There's a lot of books and stuff out there on vampires. And in that whole genre, they've created this world, this vampire world where vampires exist and they have rules, like no sunlight, garlic and wood sticks and crosses can thwart them, all these different rules and stuff. And it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than you and I probably know about, unless you've read a bunch of those books like the Twilights and all the other crap, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, all those shows and movies out there have little different nuanced rules about vampires and their nests and what they can and can't do and all this stuff. And the director of the movie said that they took all those rules and tried to bake them into the movie so that it also appeals to the vampire loving community, the people who like the Twilights, the people who like the original Draculas, the books, the whatever, the comics, all the literature they have on that genre, the Van Helsings, all that stuff. So that it wouldn't just appeal to Nic Cage fans, and it wouldn't just appeal to people who like comedy, and wouldn't just appeal to the people who like action and gore. It got the vamp community in there, which is a big community. So that was what most of the article was about. But the one thing the director did not say, or he did say, was that he is not ruling out a Dracula-focused sequel or prequel or whatever. And he even talked about how it would be possible because, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, Renfield and his partner in crime, or really I guess his future girlfriend or whatever, the cop that was played by Awkwafina, they essentially chop up Dracula into a bunch of, they throw everything at him: crosses, wood sticks, silver bullets, sunlight. They put him in a vamp bubble where you put a bunch of like bugs and spices and crap around and salts and stuff, and they can't use their vampire powers, their eagle powers, and he's stuck in there. And then they go fire all this stuff at him, and then they cover him in cement and they chop him into little pieces, and they're supposed to take him out to pasture essentially that way. But the director mentions that the different ways that Nic Cage's Dracula can survive that as a vampire, because he only needs a little bit of life, a little bit of cellular life to eventually get back to banging again, if you will. And real quick, I use that saying a lot, back to banging. And it probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I heard it the first time. It was my first year playing college baseball. I got cut the first 2 years, and I made it the third year. We were playing this team, Missouri Baptist University. And for the first 8 of 9 innings of that game, they were beating the shit out of us. We were down 8-1. And about the 5th or 6th inning, it was probably off 5 or 6-0 at the time. And we're up to the plate, and we go 3 up and 3 down easily. I mean, the pitcher might have thrown 2 pitches, and our guys just sucked. We sucked it up the first 8 innings of that game. And after they did that, they were all hyped and motivated. And, you know, when you have the momentum on your side and you're all hyped and feeling crazy, well, their shortstop, as they're running off the field, he runs off and he's yelling at his guys, and he's yelling out loud enough on purpose so we can hear it. He's like, "All right, fellas, let's get back to banging," because they were hitting the ball all over the park against our guys. We couldn't stop them. And I'll never forget him saying that. And I wish I was at the time, I wish I was good enough to actually play more that year. I was not. My senior year, I was. I felt I was. My coach will never admit it, but I know I was. And there are other players who will admit that I was good enough to actually play more. I don't think my coach will ever admit it. But regardless, my first year, I was not good. I should not have made the team. I got lucky, and I thank my lucky stars that I did. But if I was good enough to play, that would have fired me up so much that I would have tried to hit an 8-run home run myself to try to win this game and beat these guys. Just the way he said it with that cocky smile, he was sort of looking at us when he said it, like, let's get back to banging. Like we already were kicking your ass. Let's get back to kicking your ass even some more. And step on your throat and kick you while you're down, and all that other cliche crap that goes on. And I was out for blood. Unfortunately, I was relegated to the bench or to the bullpen to warm up our pitchers. So there was not much I could do but cheer harder. And honestly, at some point, I'm sure everybody on my team hated me for being that guy that just cheered. I was a cheerleader, essentially. And I didn't even get paid for it. In fact, I had to do the team laundry. So that was the state of the Libretti Union back at that time. But I was furious, and I'll never forget that saying. Anyway, we come back miraculously to tie the game up in the ninth. We're down 8-1 in the ninth, and they start making mistakes. We start getting hits. We tie it up in the ninth, and we beat them in the 10th inning, and we took them down, and it was glorious. They'll never forget it. I promise you. If you ask anybody on the 2008 Missouri Baptist University baseball team, I promise you they will all remember the game. They were winning 8-1 against Embry-Riddle, and they lost to a bunch of scrubs at the time. We had some really good players, like All-American caliber players, but at the time we played them, our team was mostly scrubs because a couple of our guys were injured. Even if they were playing, they were still playing at 75% capacity. Our team was mostly walk-ons because we had the new coach, and the old coaches took a bunch of players, and a bunch of guys graduated or quit or whatever. So it was a ragtag group of guys. We had no business ever being good. We ended up making it to the World Series tournament in Idaho for NAIA that year, and all the years I played for that matter. But they had no business losing to us, especially after they were mopping the floors. They were painting the lines on the field with our stupid selves. We sucked for 8 innings of that game. And for 1 inning and 1.5 innings, that was it. We took it to them and we beat them. And from that day on, I'll never forget that saying, back to banging. And I use it whenever I can because it makes me think of the time we upset those sons of bitches talking their shit on our field, on our home turf, and we turn around, we shut them up pretty damn good. Anyway, there's a chance that Nic Cage's Dracula comes back to life, gets back to banging, and we can create a sequel out of it and keep that whole new genre of vampire-style movies alive with the comedy action, because it's a refreshing new way to look at the vampire world, and it was very good. I was very much entertained. It brings in a new audience to the vamp world. It brings in the vamp audience. It's a gold mine. They're sitting on a gold mine for years to come over there in Hollywood, and let's just hope they don't dick it up. So anyway, that's the Cage fact. Moving on over to the Junction, we'll spin the logo up. I don't really have much going on this week, to be honest with you. I went on a work trip to Oklahoma City. Pretty uneventful. I was going to record then, but I figured I'd wait until I go to my great aunt's birthday party, because that would be something good to talk about. We could entertain you guys and get some lessons out of it or whatever. But I am at the hotel in Oklahoma City, and about a couple hours after dinner, I'm just hanging out in the room watching probably Office or South Park or whatever was on Comedy Central at the time. And all of a sudden, from underneath the air conditioning unit comes a little cockroachy. And I realized then the war is not over. And there's always that turning point in battle, in combat, when you realize a small operation now has advanced into a war. It happened in all the great wars that we've had, where it starts out as a small do-to-do between countries, or an attempted occupation of a country, and then another person gets involved, and you think it's all localized. Oh, it's just Russia and Ukraine, or it's just Germany and Poland, or it's just U.S. and Iraq, whatever. And you think it's going to be localized, and you think you snuff it out, and it's a couple weeks, and you blast them with everything you got, all your military might, and you think it's over, and it's quiet. And after the first battle, you just sit there and you revel in your victory, thinking that was it. I gave them everything I had now, so they knew, don't fuck with us, pal. And everything is nice. It's like a morning on the beach where it's just sort of serene, but there's also there's just a feeling there of because you know what just happened. There's what is the term I'm thinking of? Not an understanding, but you can feel what happened, but there's also, it's very solemn and heavy, but it's also calm and quiet, and you can hear yourself think, and the birds are starting to chirp, and you're just sitting in it all, and you're like, we got him. It took 2 weeks, and Saddam is hidden, Osama bin Laden is dead, whatever it is. And then you start to go about your business. And then the next thing you know, Hitler occupies Poland and France, and is going for England, and it's got Italy on its side, and it's starting to push into Russia and Africa, and then the Japanese are involved. And then before you know it, no matter where you go, so does the enemy. And then you're sitting in Hawaii thinking everything's all hunky-dory, and all of a sudden, a kamikaze cockroach comes out of nowhere and starts blasting you in your hotel in Oklahoma City. A day that will live in infamy. And then it's a different silence. It's a high-pitched ringing in your ears. You got shell shock. Your buddy's in the room next to you picking up his arm. And then you realize this is an all-out war. And it is nationwide, and it's not going away anytime soon. And it's a different ball game now, folks. Because when I tell you I was unprepared, I was at Pearl Harbor. I was playing baseball on the beach with my brothers in arms, throwing the ball, ripping a heater, having a schmeg. And then out of nowhere, I have no weaponry with me, okay? No weaponry whatsoever. I got some cheese. I had a couple of to-go Reese's. I had cool one in the fridge. And I schmoozed it up with the lady at the front desk to hook me up with a chocolate milk from the breakfast area that they had locked up, so I can enjoy it with my Reese's, because there wasn't a 7-Eleven within walking distance of my hotel room, and I didn't have a vehicle. So I had nothing. I had no gear. I had no familiarity with the combat zone I was in, or I guess it became a combat zone. I was throwing the ball with my buddies on the beach. And then a fully armored, ready for war kamikaze cockroach comes out of nowhere. And let me tell you something about cockroaches, in case you're not familiar, if you're from certain areas that doesn't have a lot of cockroach action. Some of them can also fly. So when I tell you it was a kamikaze cockroach, it was a kamikaze goddamn cockroach jumping out of the in-wall air conditioning unit that they have under the window in the hotels. You know, that rectangle one that's about this long, and it says Amani, that's the company. And then you go to hit the dial on the thing, and the dial never works because it hooked up to the wall. thermostat, and that thermostat doesn't really always work either, because you try to turn it lower and it doesn't, turns it off, and then you try to turn it hotter and the heat turns on and it's not really that good. That's the AC unit I'm talking about. And this thing jumps out because in the corner of my eye, I'm watching TV, and in my periffs on my right side is the air conditioning unit, because I'm sitting on the couch here. You got the window here, TV, bed to my left. If you're not in YouTube land, hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture, okay? Directly in front of me is the mirror. Caddy corner to my left a little bit, to my 11 o'clock position, is the TV on the dresser area, or the desk that underneath is the fridge and the microwave. And then just to my right, about my 2 o'clock, is the window and the air conditioning unit. So it's in my vision. It's in my peripheral vision. And I can see something moving out of the AC unit. And that's when I turn over, I look over, and there he is. And it's almost like he gave me a little like salute or a finger pistols, and then he jumped. And I swear to God, that jump was in slow motion, because I knew as soon as that bastard jumped, he was not hitting the ground. He was going airborne. And from there, I have little to no control over what happens with that guy, with that cockroach, with that enemy. The only thing I can do is, in the heat of battle, either find a counter weapon to take him out, something to defend myself, find something to hide behind where he's not going to get me, and he's also not going to destroy in the process. There was no telling what that cockroach was going to do. I wasn't sure if he was going to go turn directly at me and try to take me out directly, or if he was going to stalk me and terrorize me mentally and emotionally by going direct for the bed and burrowing under the covers or something. He could have done anything. He had all the power. This is Pearl Harbor. When you get surprise attacked, the attacker has all the control. He could have done whatever he wanted, and he would have had me most likely. But then I remembered, he's just a cockroach, Libretti. He is a bug, an insect. He can't talk. He can't think logically. He can't think on his feet. He can react on the fly, figuratively and literally, but he is not thinking strategically. He didn't have a plan going into this. He was just a bug trying to escape this particular situation that he was in, because this is not where cockroaches like to live. They don't like to live in open, lit areas. This is not where he's hanging out. And that's when I went on the counteroffensive. And I grabbed a pillow. There was a couch pillow, not a bed pillow. Let's be serious. I grabbed that thing, and it was in one foul swoop. If I was rich, I'd have a guy recording me at all times, because you never know what kind of gold is going to be around. And you'll never believe me unless I had the videos, if Pixar didn't happen or whatever. But my prowess, my war pain, my PTSD, whatever you want to call it, just immediately kicked in. That cockroach went airborne. It jumped slow motion, and then it went airborne. And I went to a different zone. I was no longer Libretti Podcast Diary Show. I was Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan. I certainly wasn't Upham. That's for goddamn sure. I was Forrest Gump. Instinct. I didn't even know what I was doing. In one foul swoop, you got the pillow over to my right. I grab it, and in the same motion, I don't grab it, turn to look for this thing. It's one motion. Arm comes around behind the pillow for a scoop to also have simultaneous momentum. Grab the pillow, and immediately I'm into a strike of the cockroach. He's in my sights. I have the pillow in my periffs, and it's one swoop, grab, bang, right out of the sky. And he went down, and I finish him off with about 12 to 18 foot stomps to make sure that bastard knew. And then I grabbed him, and I left him on top of the air conditioning. And here's why. And you can call me a nut job. You can call me somebody who's got shell shock beyond repair and is a little crazy in the head and sick and sadistic. But instead of flushing him down the toilet or wrapping him in a paper towel or whatever, throwing in the garbage, I left him up there at the scene of it all, at the end of Pearl Harbor, the end of D-Day or whatever, the end of this battle, so that his comrades, his brothers in arms, can all see what would happen when they try to fuck with this army, with the Libretti Podcast Army. You think you can come to wherever I'm at, any part of the nation, any state, any hotel room, any place, and think you can pull a sneak attack and get away with it? I don't think so. You might have caught me off guard and scared the shit out of me initially, but we are at war now. This is full-fledged war. And now I will not stop. I will not sleep. I will not rest until they throw up the white flag and they get on that cruiser, that battleship, on VL Day, Victory of Libretti Day, and they sign the surrender. And I've seen guys in combat that just won't stop. I've seen them on both sides. I've seen them with terrorists, and I've seen them with brothers in arms. And I know what it takes to just not stop until the enemy is gone. So for all the cockroaches out there, if you think you're going to take me out because of your numbers and because you have the ability to mate and reproduce nationwide very rapidly, think again, because I will not stop. Randy will not stop. The LPDS universe will not stop until you are all dead or you sign that surrender. We are at full-on war. And I moved rooms. And I got some weaponry with me. I got it from the maintenance guy or whatever at the hotel. Gave me a couple cans of some spray. And I went to a new room on a different floor to change things up a little bit. You can't just keep doing the same thing because the enemy's going to see your pattern of life and they're going to take advantage of that. That's War 101. And I set up booby traps, landmines, diversions, decoys, traps, whatever. Little detection systems so that if they were sneaking around my booby traps, at the very least, I know that the alarms would sound. And I'm ready now. I've lived in the trenches, folks. Okay? You were with me a little bit. I lived in the trenches of war on the beaches of Virginia, in the deserts of Afghanistan, in the mountains of Afghanistan. I'm a trench guy again. I'm in the trenches. Me and Randy, my artillery dog, we are in the trenches, okay? And we got the mustard gas, and we got the napalm, and we got the Oppenheimer atom bomb ready, and we're willing to use anything at any given time. And if you think we follow the Geneva Convention or any sort of moral code when we're at combat, cockroach combat, you can think again, cockroaches. We will not stop. I have nothing to live for but to protect and secure the safety and livelihood of the LPDS universe, and to take you all out one by one until all billion of you are gone. So you can come at me. I got the fortress here at the LPDS compound set up. I have all my secret mobile weaponry ready to go whenever I have to travel now. Randy's got his flak jacket. He's got his string of ammo around his neck. He's got his M1 Garand ready. Grenades. His little mallard chew toy. It's all ready. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on to a lighter note, if you will. Now that everybody's on edge and now we're talking about war, let's talk about something a little bit more happy and positive. I went to my great Aunt Mary's 100th birthday. If anybody who's been a regular fan of this show knows, we have a number one fan, Tony Sacconi. He's a cousin. He also knows Aunt Mary. I'm trying to remember what's the lineage here. He's married to, it's his aunt. It's his aunt through marriage, essentially. Because Aunt Mary's brother is his wife's father. Not that, in case you guys care, that's the lineage. That's where Tony Sacco comes from. And he's a top-tier fan of the program. He's also a big fan of the creature as well. So he knows Aunt Mary. And I got some pictures and videos that I'll be sending him. Don't worry. But she is 100 years old today. She's my grandfather JPL2's sister. And she's 2 years younger than him. Well, than he would have been. I think it's 2 years or 2 or 3 years, maybe, something like that, or maybe 1 year. I don't know. My grandfather always wanted to live to 100. That's all he cared about. He didn't care about anything or anybody else in life. He just wanted to live to 100. Unfortunately, prostate cancer got the best of him while he was still in his 80s, and he didn't make it. But my Aunt Mary made it on the 29th of July, 100 years old. In fact, listen to this story. My Aunt Mary goes to the doctor. She's feeling weird, not feeling great. They do exams, and they find out that she's got cancer. I think it was a tumor. And they told her and her family right then and there, you might have 6 weeks to live based on the size and this cancer type and whatever it was. You might have 6 weeks to live. And she said, no, I'm living until I'm 100 years old. And the death stare she gave the doctor, he just responded with, well, we're going to take it day by day and we're going to try to get you there. That was 2 years ago. Okay? If you want to talk about never stopping until the goal is achieved, you want to know where I get my crazy hard-headedness from? It's from that side of the family. When they set their minds to something, they will not stop. Nothing will stop them. Not cockroaches, not the Depression, not World War II, not attempted kidnappings, and not cancer will stop them from achieving their goal. Now, unfortunately for my grandfather, cancer was really strong. And it got him a couple times. And it finally, it took him out. It took him down. But he passed on that mindset to his sister, and she turned 100 on Saturday, the 29th of July. And let me tell you something. If it wasn't for her being in a wheelchair, you would have thought she was still in her 60s. She's got life still. She scoots around using her feet on the wheelchair. She just can't stand because she's too weak. And so she uses the wheelchair to move around, but she can move her legs and stuff. She's not paralyzed. And she's talking to everybody, and everybody in the entire nursing home knows her. She's like the mayor, and she's also the mob boss because she's taking kickbacks from everyone. She's always getting in trouble for doing that. And the entire place came together for this party. I think it was the nursing home's first person to make it to 100 there. So everyone was celebrating. We had some cake. We had a good time. And it was just, it showed me two things. It reiterated two things that I think we've discussed in the past here on this show. And it's really just rings true. Number one, if you set your mind to something legitimately and you become obsessed with achieving this goal, hopefully it's a good goal, not like something nefarious or whatever, or lazy. But if you set your mind to something legitimately, you become obsessed, and that's your focus, no matter what. I'm going to achieve this goal. You can do literally whatever the fuck you set your mind to. Whatever you say, and I'm sorry, Terrence, family show, I understand that, but we're getting fired up here. All right. So I hope you put the kids to bed. I hope your son doesn't think less of me for that. But if you put your mind to something, the power of your own belief in yourself might be the strongest thing we have in our existence. Now, you could say it muscles. You could say it's the machines that we create and the weapons we create that give us strength and power. It's not. Look, all that wouldn't be there. All that crap and those weapons, all that stuff would be non-existent if it wasn't for the human mind. If it wasn't for the nut job who first looked at a bird and said, I want to do what that bird does. Okay, I wouldn't be able to fly to Oklahoma City to fight the war on cockroaches over there if it wasn't for that psychopath, that nut job from centuries ago who said, see that thing flying up in the air? I want to do that. Okay? Our brains, when we put them to good use and we believe in ourselves, we can do anything. And that old lady said, I'm living to 100. Now I'm getting choked up like a beta bitch boy. And that guy, that doctor said, you have 6 weeks to live, lady. And she said, take a hike, dude. She said, take a hike. I'm living to 100. And that's a crazy thing to say. When a medical professional who just evaluated you and saw cancer eating away at your body from the inside out, there's nothing you can do about it. And he said, in 6 weeks, cancer will occupy your body, and will take you out. And she said, suck my dick, dude. I'm living to 100. And when you see it in person, it sounds crazy. Look, I know I sound crazy, but hear me out. When you hear someone say that, especially an old person, because they're a little kooky, they're older, the likelihood of someone living to 100 is low, to say the least. And when you see that happen, everybody you see say that doesn't make it. I thought for sure my grandfather was going to make it. I thought for sure, of all people, one of my two grandfathers was going to make it. They just had it. They just had that it factor of, I don't care what anybody says. I'm just going to do it. And he didn't make it. And I thought after that, that mindset was dead. And then this old lady, this old crazy bag of bones who survived everything, the Depression, World War II, a couple of husbands, the mafia coming after her. A guy kidnapped her. Listen to this. This was like in, I don't know, maybe the 60s, 70s. I don't remember when it was. 80s? I don't remember exactly when it was. Probably before that. Maybe the 60s. I got to ask my father. Tony Sacco, you'll listen to this and you'll remember the timeline. She's getting into her car, and this dude jumps in her car and holds her at gunpoint and says, drive. And I think I don't know if he was connected to like the mob or something like that, or whatever the reason why they were taking her. And she's in her 60s. Then maybe that's what it was. Maybe she was in her 60s. So I don't remember the exact timeline. I think 40 years ago. So imagine a 60-year-old woman is held at gunpoint by a guy, like an adult guy, a young adult, 30s, and he's got a gun to her head. And she's driving now, okay? She's in the middle of driving, and while she's driving, she grabs the gun or wrestles it out of his hand and then starts beating the shit out of him with his own gun. A 30-something-year-old criminal who gets paid to do crime is getting the shit beat out of him by his own gun in the hands of a 60-something-year-old lady. And there's blood everywhere. And then eventually she stops and she kicks his ass out. And they get the cops in there. And the cops come and they start rushing her to the hospital thinking she was shot or whatever. And she keeps yelling at them, well, it's not, like, leave me alone. I'm fine. I'm fine. They get to the hospital and they find out it's not even her blood. She was beating him over the head so bad, he was bleeding over. They thought she was the one who was injured. And now this quack doctor is telling her, you're not making it another month, lady. Okay? You're 97 and a half years old. You lived a good life. Go be with your family and enjoy the time. And she said, kindly fuck off, guy. I have a mission. I'm on a mission, and nobody and nothing is going to stop me. And that mindset is wildly powerful. And I sound like a blubbering idiot right now. But when you see that stuff happen, it's just crazy inspiring. She's sitting there having the time of her life, eating cake, opening up cards. She still reads perfectly. Cursive, everyone was writing in cursive on the card, and she's reading no problem. She had a couple of fumbles with bad penmanship, but she was still able to power through and read it. Balloons, coffee, all her old lady and old guy friends at the nursing home were there. Her family flew in from all over the country. She's just, if I didn't tell you right now, you would have never guessed she was dying of cancer. And it's just the power of the human mind was just right there physically in front of you. And we're sitting there having a good time. You're not really present in the moment. You're just enjoying the fact that we're having a 100th birthday party for somebody. Everybody's celebrating. I said, even the nursing home, that was their first 100-year-old. But when you take the step back and realize the magnitude of that lady was supposed to be dead 2 years ago. And she set her mind to something, and she just did it. And there was nothing that was going to stop her. No one was going to stop her. Not cancer, not a doctor, not her family, not nothing. And if that doesn't motivate you to get off your asses and accomplish your goals and become a better person, become more successful, be a better husband or a wife, take the leap of faith you're too scared to take in your lives. If that doesn't motivate you and give you the confidence that you can do anything you fucking want, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. The human brain is just a crazy, powerful, incredible thing. And to witness it in person is just, I can't explain it. You're going to think I'm crazy, and that's okay. You can think I'm crazy. But I'll tell you what, if you think I'm crazy for getting after what I want to get after in life, no matter how crazy you think my idea is, or how stupid or how unlikely I am to succeed at whatever I want to do, whatever my next idea or goal is, you're going to be the crazy ones, okay? Because after seeing that, after seeing what that lady did, I can do anything. There's nothing I can't do. And there's nothing you can't do. And that's the big thing here. That is the lesson in it all. There is nothing you can't do in your lives. And you can make up every excuse in the book. And you can try to do the mental gymnastics to come up with every reason why it doesn't make sense. Oh, I can't just leave my job because the market is down, or it's a recession, and this reason and that reason. And what if I can't find another job and all this other shit? Listen to me. It's all bullshit. All of the lies I've been telling myself it's all bullshit. You could do whatever the fuck you want. This is not a family show anymore. You could do whatever you want. You just have to get it in your head that you can do it and you will do it. And then just go out and fucking do it. And most of the stuff is way more doable than living through terminal cancer for 2 extra years. And who knows how much longer she's going to live now, because she still looks fine. It's cancer's still there. The tumors didn't go away, got bigger. That's the craziest thing about it. They didn't give her any real treatment. They monitored her. They had her in an assisted living facility close to her family so that she can still be around family for holidays and parties and stuff, and that she was still getting monitored by health professionals. But there was no chemo, no surgery. She's 99 years old, 97 and a half at the time. They're not giving surgery to remove any tumors at that age. It's ridiculous. She just did nothing but will it into existence. And you can credit any other outside factor, whatever you want to do to justify in your brain why it's not likely to happen, and this is why it's not realistic, and it doesn't always happen like that, and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that anymore. Yeah, I saw it happen. I saw this lady just tell a doctor who looked at her insides and said, "They're gone. You got a month and a half, lady." And she just looked him in the eye and gave him the finger, essentially. She might have really done that. Who knows? And then she just lived her life. And in her brain, whatever happened in your mind when you are so adamant about something and so convinced about your goals and your mission that it chemically changed the makeup of her body to be able to fight off whatever was taking her out inside. That's what I believe happened. And you could call it a miracle. You could call it Santa Claus giving his gift early. You could call it stroke of luck, whatever you want to call it. She's the only one who actually called it. That's it. She said it, and then she did it. So if that's not motivation enough or confidence building enough for you to get off your asses and stop rotting at a job you hate, or go approach the girl of your dreams or the guy that you're in love with or whatever, try a new hobby, take on a new goal in life, try something you're scared to death of. If that doesn't give you the motivation and confidence to do that, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. Because I can't stop thinking about what this lady did. I can't even call her this crazy lady. My Aunt Mary, I keep getting worked up thinking about it. She should have been dead years ago. And here we are, celebrating her 100th birthday. Look, cherish what you got in this life. And then don't let life pass you by because you're too scared and you're making up too many bullshit excuses and you think you can't do something. Because there's living proof about 150 miles from this LPDS compound that would kindly tell you to fuck right off, just like she did to that doctor. And that's all I got today. Happy birthday, Aunt Mary. Before we go, the big three, as if we didn't talk about that enough. Number one, this is 3 pillars to staying strong and being a better, happier, kinder, more genuine human being. Number one, exercise every day, physically, mentally, emotionally. Do something to exercise your brain, your body, or your soul. Number two, don't be a shitty person. Just to get out of that environment, especially on the internet. If you see shit posting negativity, just omit yourself from that and focus on kindness and positivity. Number three, the most important one, be genuinely thankful and grateful for all the good you have in your lives. You never know when it's going to go. You never know when it's going to be gone. LeBron James's 18-year-old son had a heart attack on the basketball court during practice. He's an NBA level prospect, an NBA caliber basketball prospect, 18 years old, peak athletic condition, and he had a heart attack a couple weeks ago on the court. In stable condition, still alive. Or you could be told you're going to be dead in 6 weeks from cancer. You don't know when it's all going to be gone. So be grateful for it while you have it now, and just stop taking the shit for granted. Stop expecting to wake up every morning and that you're going to have all this shit. And then from there, do the things in your life to make that life better. Don't settle for horse shit for your entire existence just because you're too scared to do anything about it and you're not being grateful for the good you already do have. Understand this. You never know when it's all going to be gone. So be grateful for what you have now, the good that you have now, and get off your ass and get the good stuff that you wanted your entire lives and you're too goddamn scared to do anything about. Because if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. I could not be more convinced of anything else in my life right now. You can't convince me otherwise. There's nothing you can't do. I'm going to cry again. There's nothing you can't do. Convinced of it. And if you do all those 3 things, you'll be a better, happier, kinder, more genuine human being, and you can spread that goodness and genuineness. Is that a word? Yep, it is now. Out to the rest of the world. Thank you guys again for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends and enemies. Spread the good word. Show them this episode. Maybe just the Junction part. Post cockroaches. Hit the hotline 202-670-1114. Do what you got to do. Thank you guys again. I love you all. Stay strong.